welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. This is Calamity. She thinks that this is her show, The Calamity Show, but it's not. Actually, today we're talking about rabbit medicine, and I think that this is something that a lot of people overlook. In general, compared to other types of livestock like goats, rabbits are pretty inexpensive. You can find a decently good meat rabbit breeder for about $60. And so when you're weighing the options for a sick animal, you have to kind of decide if they are worth treating and pulling through something, or if they're just going to be something that you replace. So for us, it kind of just depends on the age, and it depends on the potential of that animal. Also, sometimes really great breeding stock, really good breeding animals are hard to find. And so an animal that may be harder to replace may be worth more as far as inputs in medicine. So in general, rabbits are pretty healthy, especially if you buy from good breeding stock. You shouldn't really have to worry about things like snuffles or ear mites or really nest box eyes. Some stuff can be kind of genetic, like sore hawk, the sore that some rabbits can get on the bottom of their foot. There is a genetic tendency for that. So in general, if you're starting out with quality breeding stock, you should have relatively healthy animals. But that's not to say that stuff doesn't go wrong occasionally. And so this stuff is really good to know about so you can decide what you want to prepare for. So for us, a lot of the stuff on my medicine list for rabbits, I have on hand anyways, just because I have a dairy goat herd. Dairy goats can be a little bit high maintenance, and so I like to have a lot of stuff on hand, and consequently a lot of that stuff can be also used on the rabbits. So this kind of medicine cabinet, I don't know that I would necessarily have if I only had a herd of rabbits. Some of it I would have on hand because some stuff is a little bit more common than others to see in rabbits, and we'll talk about all that. This list is really in no particular order. I am going to be listing off some conventional medicines as well as some herbals, and so you can kind of decide what fits your situation best. The very first thing that I would have on hand, regardless of the size of my rabbitry, is mylicon gas drops. So these you can get at your regular pharmacy. They're designed for infants, human infants, and these can be very, very helpful if your rabbit has a little bit of bloat and you really need to get that gas down. One common issue that rabbits can get is called GI stasis, and it's basically a snowball effect of them not eating and gas building up in their stomach, and then because of their uncomfortable gut with the gas in it, they don't eat, and their intestinal tract will just stop moving. That's what stasis means. And when a rabbit doesn't have any inputs, they're not going to have any outputs, and that can just spell disaster. They can go toxic really quickly. And a lot of times, if you can take down that gas pressure, the rabbit feels good enough to eat some hay, and once you get that input going, usually you'll see some outputs coming out. And mylicon gas drops are pretty inexpensive. I think you can get it for less than $6, and it goes a really long way because you don't have to give a whole lot to the rabbit. In the same note, we have actually given an enema to a rabbit one time, and that was to help with GI stasis. We did a little bit of massage and enema, and the rabbit did recover. And for a rabbit enema, all you really need is a syringe that has a little nozzle on the end of it. You can find these at the farm store, at the drugstore, and you just load a little bit of warm water in the syringe and perform the enema very carefully. Another great thing to have on hand, no matter the size of your rabbitry, is apple cider vinegar. There's a lot of really great minerals and probiotics inside apple cider vinegar, and just keeping apple cider vinegar in the waters of the rabbits really helps stave off a lot of disease. It just helps keep them healthy. So if we get a little bit more technical in some of the medicines that you could have on hand for rabbits, I would recommend keeping penicillin on hand. Penicillin is a broad spectrum antibiotic that does work very well in rabbits. I have used it here because of syphilis. Syphilis is treated with antibiotics. You could also use it for really any kind of infection that the rabbit may be dealing with, possibly pneumonia. And with penicillin, that's something you're going to want to get pretty soon because over-the-counter antibiotics are coming off of the shelf June of this year, and you're going to maybe want to stock up on something like that because it's going to be harder to get. In the future, you're going to be having to go through a vet for those antibiotics, and that's just going to add to the cost. You also might think about getting some ivermectin. So rabbits can get fleas, they can get ear mites. Maybe rabbits that are kept on the ground could get worms. I don't know anything about that, but I do know that there are dosage charts for ivermectin online, and I have a friend who has successfully treated a rabbit with ear mites using ivermectin. Another good treatment for ear mites is mineral oil. This is relatively inexpensive, and that can just be added straight to the ear. That's how we have chosen to treat ear mites here. It's just a little bit more hands-on on more often. You need to do the application of the mineral oil inside the ear about every day for a week and then every other day for another week in order to clear it up, while the ivermectin injection or the topical ivermectin would just be a one-time dose. There are people who will also use essential oils inside their rabbit's ear. That's completely up to you. I would have probably for ear mites, probably tea tree oil inside a fractionated coconut oil in order to treat ear mites. Another common thing you'll see, I guess relatively common, I haven't seen it in a really long time, but it's called nest box eye. And essentially, it's when a baby rabbit gets pink eye. And even adult rabbits can get pink eye from time to time. It's a lot more common in kits, but you can get an eye ointment. It's called tetramycin, I believe. This might be something that comes off the shelf pretty soon since it's an antibiotic, but being topical, I'm not really sure what they're doing with that. But you can also use colloidal silver in the eye, and I have treated pink eye both ways. Another thing that can affect rabbits is coccidia. Coccidia is a protozoa that can infect the gut and just have a coccidial bloom, and they'll get diarrhea. And one of the treatments is actually something that I have for my goats. It's called Baycox or toltrazuril, and this is kind of an expensive medicine, so this might be one that I would elect not to keep. I don't know if there are treatments using corid, which is a little bit cheaper. It's amprolium. That's something you may want to research, but I know that corid is a little bit harder on goats, so that's why I don't really keep it here. Another disease that you may see in rabbits is called snuffles. Snuffles is not good. It's essentially a head cold, but it's really hard on rabbits. Anything respiratory, really anything at all. Rabbits are pretty fragile, but snuffles is really hard on rabbits. So I do have a friend who did have a rabbit with snuffles, and she treated the rabbit successfully with a product called Critical Care Herbivore by Oxbow. I haven't used this myself, but I trust her judgment, and it worked for her, so I believe it could work for you. And as always, it's a really good idea just to have a good quality hay on hand. If your rabbit ever happens to go off feed for whatever reason, again, you want to make sure that they're keeping things coming in their mouth so they have things coming through their whole system and they don't start to develop gas. So having hay on hand really helps for those situations. So one of my rabbits delivered 11 babies yesterday. And in the first week of life, I like to count the babies every day just in case. If a baby rabbit does happen to die, it will chill the whole rest of the nest, and you can lose a lot more baby rabbits if you don't pull that rabbit out. The mother in general won't pull dead ones out. It's a nice healthy baby rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. We do have one casualty. It's not unusual to have 1 or 2 out of a large litter not make it, so we're gonna put this guy to the side and put all the rest of the babies back. So this was a quick video, but I hope that it was informative for you. This does conclude my Raising Rabbits series. This was really fun. If you haven't seen the rest of the videos in the series, I'm gonna link that up here. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. I try my very best to answer every single one.